Ito po ay garapalan at sistematikong pandarambong harap-harapan. Habang ang mga bata ay hindi makapasok sa eskwela at mga manggagawa late sa trabaho dahil sa baha ang kalsada, may mga opisyal at kontratista na nagbubunyi sa kanilang mansyon.
Senator Ping Lacson, who delivered a privileged speech regarding the evils of flood control programs, Mr. President. So move, Mr. President.
Senator Ping Lacson and the Minority Leader, Senator Tito Soto, are both recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the distinguished gentleman from Cavite yield to some questions regarding his privileged speech last week?
Certainly to the distinguished minority leader, our minority leader, and I cannot let this opportunity pass without acknowledging the exemplary leadership recently displayed by our minority leader. Not many among our colleagues know that he gave way to all the members of the minority. No? Yung membership po ng Commission on Appointments, binigay niya kina Senators Legarda, Subiri, and Risa Ontiveros. Hindi lang yun, pati yung set, binigay pa po dito sa this humble representation. So that's the mark of a true leader, Mr. President. So thank you, distinguished minority leader.
Thank you, kind sir. I am humbled by the manifestation. Thank you. Just to refresh our colleagues also, Mr. President, if I may continue. You mentioned in your privilege speech some contractors and some of the owners. Now, Mr. President, may I go on? The Alpha and Omega construction and the St. Timothy constructions were included in the top 15 flood control contractor list from President Bongbong Marcos on during his press conference. And if I'm not mistaken, you also mentioned something to that effect in your privilege speech. Now, on the Securities and Exchange Commission papers, iba-iba po ang owners ng composition of the company. But in actuality, alam ng lahat na isa lang ang may-ari nito. Same owner of the once blacklisted St. Gerard Construction. Now, they will deny this fact until they can. However, in one of the tax cases filed against them on 2022 before the Court of Tax Appeals, CTA case number 10472, to be exact, the same and one address lang ang ginagamit for St. Timothy, St. Matthew, St. Gerard, and Alpha and Omega Construction Corporations. Also, the majority stockholder of St. Timothy, who owns 85% of the company, named Miguel Juntura, was the marketing director of St. Gerard. The question, Mr. President, billions of government projects concentrated and monopolized by a few. Mr. President, paano nila itong nailulusot? Who monitors this kind of circumvention?
We have an agency, Mr. President. It is called the Philippine Contractors Accreditation Board, or PICAB, which is the implementing board of the CIAP, a Construction Industry Authority of the Philippines. Incidentally, this authority is under the DTI. Pero it seems na medyo na haluan na rin yata ng konting, o hindi lang konti, nakatiwalian pagdating sa mga flood control projects, because information keep coming in sa aming opisina na itong PICAB nagre-resort na sa accreditation for sale. May mga ganyang reports, and I've talked to some contractors, private contractors, na they had this experience of being offered accreditation by PICAB, na sila na yung bahala sa bank certificate and other requirements for a fee of, I think, 2 million pesos for a start. So ganito na po kasama talaga yung kalakaran sa ating bureaucracy. And I think in the second hearing of the Blue Ribbon Committee, because I believe, as we have monitored, na during the first hearing, guest po ninyo yung resource person nyo yung pick-up. And there's some issues that they could not explain during the hearing. And I think we can take this up again with them. Your observation in relation to St. Timothy and Alpha and Omega. Incidentally, Mr. President, Alpha Omega was mentioned by the Pride of Congress, who incidentally is the produced seed of our distinguished colleague, Senator Lauren Legarda. Sabi ko nga, move over, Senator Legarda, there's a new kid on the block. And to her credit, she produced a seed named Leandro Legarda Leviste. Nabanggit po niya itong Alpha Omega, na one of the 3 contractors na involved, na may resibo pa. Ang sabi niya, I heard his interview sa radio, TV, and he identified Alpha and Omega ba ito?
Yes.
Alpha and Omega Construction Corporation as one of the 3 bribe givers given through the district engineer of Batangas, First Engineering District, si Abelardo Calalo. And I think we should not stop at filing the information or filing the case with the prosecutor's office of Batangas. I think we should dig deeper into this case. Congressman Leviste offered him to be a state witness, and I think the Department of Justice can pursue this, if only to identify and to catch the bigger fish. Kasi lumalabas ngayon, as I mentioned in my privilege speech, naging bagmen na lang, naging legmen yung mga district engineers. Sila na lang yung taga-takbo ng mga contractors, and who knows, maybe even the funders who are the sponsors or proponents of insertions in the GAA.
Well, thank you for that, Mr. President. May I know how the Philippine Contractors Board is formed? Ano ba ito? Paano nabubuo itong board na to? Who appoints the members? Who elect the members?
Let me look into that, Mr. President. But I think that's a good question to be raised in the second hearing of the Blue Ribbon Committee, led by our distinguished colleague, Senator Marcoleta. I-take note natin, Mr. President, so we can
Yes.
ask this question.
That's good. Thank you very much. Now, speaking of government officials, to determine the involvement of government officials or intertwined ownership with those who have been blacklisted or those who have tax evasion cases, do you think we should also try to dig deeper during the evaluation of project contractors, such as going into the layers of their ownership? Hindi po ba dapat ganun ang gawin?
Certainly, Mr. President, we should look into that. Yung interlocking directorship ang tawag doon, na kung saan nile-layer, pero pag tiningnan mo yung corporation documents ng several corporations, nag-i-interlock yung mga director, sila rin. And of course, nile-layer para hindi ma-identify. And this is a practice being committed by, mga unscrupulous corporations that deal with the government, particularly mga flood control projects.
Yeah, Mr. President, your guess is as good as mine also. Hindi ko nga alam kung paano nabubuo itong Philippine Contractors Accreditation Board. Kasi in 2023, the Bulacan River Project amounted to 96.4 million was deemed completed. However, upon the ocular inspection of the President, stated that more than 200 meters of revetment was not built. And the contractor is St. Timothy Construction Corporation. O sila na naman yun. So after this anomaly, the PICAB, o yung Philippine Contractors Board, no? The PICAB license of St. Timothy was renewed from 2025 to 2027, allowing them to again participate in other massive government projects. How is this, how can this happen, Mr. President, Your Honor?
Most likely, Mr. President, ghost project po ito. Yung minention nyo na 96 million na peso flood control project. Ang nangyayari po kasi, Mr. President, as I also mentioned in my privilege speech, minsan yung lisensya ng contractor, hinihiram na lamang ng District Engineering Office at sila na nag-implement. And the district engineer is the one, you know, upon receipt of the what we call project designation order. So mag-organize na siya, he will appoint the project engineer, PE. And he will also appoint yung inspector unit, yung mag-i-inspect. And even if hindi makumpleto yung project kasi nga ghost, no, mag-i-issue na rin sila ng tinatawag na Statement of Works Accomplishment. Puro papel po ang tumatakbo, ang umaandar without the project being completed. And I think there's a failure in the monitoring system of the Department of Public Works and Highways in the central office. Kasi meron silang monitoring office under, I think, under a USEC, ano, in the department. Ito yung nagmo-monitor ng progress ng lahat ng mga projects, not only flood control projects, but all kinds of infra projects under the auspices or supervision of the Department of Public Works and Highways. So I don't know how high up yung syndicate, but it seems that the Dpwh has become a playground of syndicates. Kasi nung sinabi nga ni Secretary Bonoan na isolated case ang first engineering district ng Bulacan, I did not believe him, Mr. President. Kasi mismong ang presidente, pag nag-iikot sa iba't ibang lugar, may nakikitang ghost projects. I myself, my team, was able to validate this in Nauhan, in Sitio Dike, Barangay Apitong. And I was listening to this interview by Secretary Bonoan. Sabi niya, miscommunication lang daw with the barangay chairman na sinasabing yung project na sinasabing ghost project, ibang lugar daw. Well, ang sinabi niya, Barangay Dike. Barangay, hindi raw sa Barangay Apitong. Sitio Dike, Mr. President, is in Barangay Apitong. And our basis for locating that particular ghost project declared as completed, pero walang project na nangyari, pinabalidate lang namin doon sa barangay chairman and some residents na talagang wala silang nasaksihan na construction ng flood control projects in that area. Kasi isang sitio lang naman to, Mr. President. Yung sinasabi niya, miscommunication, mali raw yung aming team, which I cannot accept, Mr. President, because, you know, I have this habit of validating, counter-checking, validating again before I open my mouth, especially in a privileged speech, because I know I will be fact-checked. You know? And it really happened because andyan na yung media, nagpunta na doon sa mga binanggit kong ghost projects, and they were really fact-checking kung talagang ghost projects. And here comes the Dpwh Secretary, no less, no, even accusing us, or insinuating at least, na mali kami, and mali rin daw yung media. So how could the Bulacan First District Engineering Office be an isolated case kung laganap na yung kaso? And man you, Mr. President, yung ginawa namin, in-undertake lang namin mga case studies because I already anticipated that line na hindi isolated case yan. Actually, we were ready to deliver, I was ready to deliver my privilege speech after Nauhan or after Oriental Mindoro. Sufficient na po yung mga case studies doon. But I told my staff, let's wait a while kasi sasabihin check yan, isolated case yung Oriental Mindoro. Let's go to other places. And luckily for us, Mr. President, the President launched 1 week after his SONA, he launched the Sumbong sa Pangulo .ph website. And it was very helpful actually. And it continues to help our netizens, the media, and other people concerned with the anomalous flood control projects. Ang laking tulong po sa amin because exact location, the website provided us with the exact grid coordinates. Kaya nga pati yung multo, pati yung guni-guni nakita namin eh. Imagine, wala ka makikitang project pero natukoy pa rin ng aking team or teams kung saan nakalocate yung ghost projects. Why? Because of the sumbong sa Pangulo website. Hindi makakaila, Mr. President. That's the reason why we were able to locate several ghost projects, mostly in Bulacan. Kasi as I also mentioned in my privilege speech, yung Bulacan First District Engineering Office, yun ang pinaka-notorious in at least from where I sit, Mr. President.
Ginoong Pangulo, Mr. President, ngunit kung completed na yung project, pag sinabing deemed completed, nabayaran na to.
Babayaran, Mr. President.
Babayaran o nabayaran na?
Nabayaran.
And there are several signatories like for a project inspection, it has to be declared complete para ma-release yung payment. Pipirma dyan yung inspectorate team, yung assistant district engineer, and the district engineer, at kung sino-sino pa. Paano pong nakakalusot yan? Di alam nila lahat.
Well, they should be held accountable and criminally liable, Mr. President. No?
My only question, Mr. President, is it possible that in the submission of the National Expenditure Program, some of the nominations or pet projects of legislators will also be part of the NEP, that it's already there, and therefore you cannot say it's just a executive budget and therefore wala na sila, excluded na yung kung sino man yung proponent ng isang proyekto. That's a question that I'd like to, just one question.
It is already happening actually, Mr. President. You know, I talked to one official from the Dpwh. Nilalako na nila yan eh. Sa NEP pa lang, preparation ng NEP, nag-o-offer na sila sa mga legislators, o magpasok na kayo rito. So, it takes two to tango.
And how do we prevent that, Mr. President?
Well, nangyari kay minority leader, distinguished minority leader. He confided to me. Somebody from the Dpwh, an undersecretary, called him up, or his staff, nag-o-offer. Sabi niya, sabi mo kay Tito Sen, magpasok na siya sa NEP. Now, if we don't dance the tango with the other party, hindi mangyayari, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, next to interpolate is the gentleman from Palawan, Senator Erwin Tulfo. I move that you recognize, Mr. President.
The gentleman from Palawan, Senator Erwin Tulfo, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I would like to manifest, being the Vice Chair of the Blue Ribbon Committee, we have already invited the Philippine Contractors Accreditation Board on our next hearing, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise today with anger and frustration, not just as a legislator, but as a Filipino taxpayer. Because what I heard in the privileged speech of our colleague, Senator Lacson, is nothing short of a national disgrace. Ginoong Pangulo, ito po ay garapalan at sistematikong pandarambong harap-harapan. Habang ang mga bata ay hindi makapasok sa eskwela at mga manggagawa late sa trabaho dahil sa baha ang kalsada, may mga opisyal at kontratista na nagbubunyi sa kanilang mansyon. Now, will a distinguished gentleman from Cavite yield to some direct and very serious question?
Willingly to the distinguished gentleman from Palawan and the Republic of the Philippines.
Ang una ko pong katanungan, Mr. President, ang pag-i-insert po ba sa NEP o ika nga sa BICAM, kaya bang gawin ito ng isang ordinaryong mambabatas o kinakailangan niyang ika nga maging opisyal o mataas, may kataasang katungkulan bilang mambabatas, Mr. President?
Every legislator, Mr. President, is entitled to introduce amendments. hindi natin mapipigil because all of us, ako mismo, nag-amend po ako, nagsasubmit ako ng amendments. When we had this discussion, I had this discussion with the chairman of the Finance Committee, and right away, I understood where he was coming from when he was reluctant during my interpellation to accept my supposed amendments na i-identify natin yung mga proponents ng mga amendments. When we had this one-on-one talk or discussion, paano naman Senping, sabi niya, marami tayo, may mga kasamahan naman tayo dyan, mahilig lang magpadagdag, hindi naman naghahanap kung saan kukunin yung pandagdag. And siyempre, ako tagahanap noon, being the chairman, magagalit naman sa akin yung mga agencies na binawasan ko para idagdag doon sa mga advocacies, doon sa mga proposed amendments ng ating mga kasamahan. And that's the reason why I counter-proposed to him na okay, accepted, pero baka pwedeng, pag nakita ko may umusbong sa isang agency, pwede ko bang tanungin sa iyo kung sino yung responsible na nagpadagdag sa isang agency? And he agreed. And that was good enough for me because I thought at the time that the outcome would be the same. Ang importante, Mr. President, if something goes wrong with the implementation of the project, at na-trace back natin doon sa legislator, congressman man o senador, na siya yung nag-propose, somehow, meron siyang shared responsibility to see to it that the implementation of the project na dinagdagan niya ng pondo, maayos. But, if we don't have the mechanism to identify or to backtrack and trace back to the proponent or proponents of the amendments, then wala, malakas ang loob. Imagine, Mr. President, punta tayo sa Nauhan, Oriental Mindoro. Kitang-kita na natin, hindi ko nga binanggit yung pangalan niya because I didn't want to mention any name of any legislator. But, initially, when I was discussing with my staff, sabi ko, i-blur na lang natin yung pangalan. Kasi nag-iisa yung mame-mention. But the day before I delivered the speech, sabi ko, teka muna, bakit ba tayo magko-cover up sa kanya? Siya naman ang umaamin. Nakalagay, funded by his office. Tapos nakalagay doon, congressional allocation, accomplishment report. And then when he was interviewed on the same day or the following day after my privilege speech, wala akong alam dyan.